Okay, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the vocabulary that's in chapter 1, which you can see these are saludos. Así es la vida, saludos y despedidas. And if you look over here, it's also saying saludos y despedidas. It's basically greetings and farewell, so it's how you greet and tell people goodbye. And you can look at this scenario there. Okay, if you look out here, you can see that they're in a university setting. Okay, so in the first one it says, en la universidad los estudiantes y los profesores conversan. Okay, so it's just telling you that in the university, the students and teachers, they talk. So this first dialogue goes with this picture, which is two students conversing. So Jorge says, hola María Luisa, ¿cómo estás? So we know that the two students know each other because Jorge addresses her by her name, Maria Luisa. And so usually when we know people and we run into them in the hall, we frequently ask them, how are you doing, right? So that's what he's saying. Hola, Maria Luisa. Hey, Maria Luisa, ¿cómo estás? How are you? And then Maria Luisa says, muy bien, Jorge, ¿y tú qué tal? So muy bien. Okay, so that's muy bien, right, Jorge? ¿Y tú qué tal? Yo fenomenal. And fenomenal, again, I mean, it looks almost like it does in English. It just means like phenomenal. So that's another affirmative response. Now she says, ¿Cómo estás? I mean, he says, ¿Cómo estás? And she doesn't say that, but she still gets kind of the same answer back from him. Well, we know means and two is you. So if someone asks you a question and you don't want to repeat it back, but you want to ask the same question, you can just say and you, y tú. ¿Qué tal also means as another informal way of asking someone how they're doing. So if you look, ¿Qué tal? What's up? Like, what's up? How are you doing? Over here, the conversation is between the professor and a student. So Profesora Lopez dice, hola, buenas tardes. So Jorge just plain says hola. She says buenas tardes. It's the afternoon. So in Spanish-speaking countries, a lot of times they don't just say hola. They use these expressions as well. Buenos días, good morning. Buenas noches, good evening. And buenas tardes, good afternoon. And it's not quite as formal, I guess, as it is over here. Like, it's very common to greet somebody by saying that instead of just saying hello. And also they mention over here, buenas is typical in Spain. I lived in Honduras and over there people often said buenas too, just kind of like how we say hey. If they ran into each other in passing, they'd say buenas instead of saying, buenos días, buenas noches, buenas tardes. Okay, so anyway, la profesora López dice, hola, buenas tardes, ¿cómo se llama usted? And he answers, me llamo Roberto Gomez. So even if you don't know all of the words in there, you can tell that his answer includes his name. So more than likely they don't know each other, and she was asking him what his name is. So if you want to ask someone what their name is, you say, ¿Cómo se llama usted? He says, me llamo Roberto Gomez. She says, mucho gusto. If she's polite, after he gives his name, she's saying, nice to meet you. That's what mucho gusto is. And then she gives her name, soy la profesora Lopez. So if you look, he said, me llamo Roberto Gomez, but she says, soy la profesora Lopez. So me llamo means I call myself Roberto Gomez. Soy is I am. So you can either say, like, I call myself Roberto Gomez. You could even say, my name is, which is mi nombre es Roberto Gomez, or you can use soy Roberto Gomez. All three of those, me llamo, mi nombre es, and soy are appropriate responses to the question, what's your name? He says encantado. Both of those, mucho gusto. Where'd it go? Okay. Encantado means pleased to meet you, and mucho gusto means nice to meet you. So they're synonyms. It's okay to use either or. The only difference is with encantado, you have to change it for a male versus a female. So Roberto says he is pleased to meet la profesora Lopez. So he says encantado. If she had wanted to use this word here instead of mucho gusto, she would have said encantada. Mucho gusto, though, says the same for both boys and girls. Okay. Let me mention something else that you don't see here. There's formal versus informal. So up here, because these are two students, they're being informal. That's why they say things like ¿Cómo estás? ¿Qué tal? Or they could use ¿Qué pasa? Those are all the ways they can ask each other how they're doing because they're two students, right? But if Profesora Lopez and Roberto, if they wanted to know how each other was doing, they would be a little more formal and use ¿Cómo está usted? Instead of ¿Cómo estás? ¿Qué pasa? Or ¿Qué tal? They would need to be formal because they have a student-teacher relationship, which is like a professional type of relationship. And because of that, she says ¿Cómo se llama usted? So she's being formal and asking him his name. If these two people didn't know each other and they wanted to ask each other their names, even though they don't know each other because they're both students, they can go ahead and be informal and they could use ¿Cómo te llamas? Okay. Let's see. How you're doing? ¿Cómo estás? Or ¿Cómo está? And answer to that question, you could either say más o menos, so, bien, well, or muy bien, very well, mal, bad, or muy mal, very badly, and todo bien, all's well. All of those would be fine. Let's see, then down here, Lupita and Juan. Lupita says, hasta luego, Juan, and Juan says, nos vemos, so they're leaving. Any of these are fine for saying goodbye. Adios, hasta luego, see you later, hasta mañana, see you tomorrow, hasta pronto, see you soon, or nos vemos. We'll see, see you later. Only thing is, I don't know if this matters or not, but when I was in Spain, they preferred to use hasta luego to adios because adios was more like a final farewell. And when I was in Honduras, pretty much everybody used nos vemos. Let's see if there's anything else. There is gracias. Maybe if someone asks you how you're doing, you might say bien, gracias, like thank you for asking. Igualmente is likewise. When the teacher over here said mucho gusto, soy la profesora Lopez, instead of encantado, he might have said igualmente, meaning, nice to meet you, igualmente. Or she could have said mucho gusto and he could have said igualmente. And then she said, soy la profesora Lopez. So igualmente goes as a response. After someone has said mucho gusto or encantado, you can say igualmente. De nada, you're welcome. So if you say gracias, the person might say de nada. Lo siento, I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay, so some other things that are out there. These are some titles. El señor is a Mr., la señora a Mrs. or a Ms., and la señorita a Miss. And then over here you've got some sustantivos, nouns. You've got, and a lot of these are cognates. They sound and look a lot like they do in English, like la clase, class, el estudiante, student. Now, if it's got it, we're going to go over the articles later on, but el is a masculine article and la is a feminine article. So if it's el estudiante, because it's got a masculine article in front of it, you're referring to a male student. If it's got a la in front of it, you're referring to a female student. El profesor is a male professor. La profesora is a female one. La tarea is homework. La universidad is the university. And then some other expressions, ¿cómo se escribe? If you want me to tell you how to spell something, you'd say, ¿cómo se escribe estudiante? And I would say, E-S-T-U-D-I-A-N-T-E. Con is with. Me or mis both mean my, that's a possessive adjective, which we'll go over a little later in the semester. O is or, tu, tus, your, and e, and.